Fired, forgotten, okay, but far from finished. How Black women are rewriting success after rejection. Welcome to a conversation that will challenge everything you think you know about career setbacks and success. Today, I'm sharing profound insights from my transformational dialogue with Michelle Dosso, a visionary advocate whose work is literally reshaping the landscape for Black women in professional space across America. Michelle isn't just another career coach or motivational speaker, she's a revolutionary thinker who has dedicated her life to creating pathways for Black women to thrive in environments that weren't designed for their success. Through her groundbreaking research, community building, and fearless advocacy, Michelle has become the North Star for thousands of women navigating the treacherous waters of corporate America and beyond. What makes Michelle's perspective so powerful is her ability to see opportunity where others see only devastation. And nowhere is this more evident than in her analysis of what's happening right now in the professional lives of Black women across our nation. The insight she shared with me, the one that stopped me in my tracks, is this: the recent wave of layoffs among Black women is not just a devastating setback, it's sparking nothing less than a radical reimagining of what success looks like for us. Let me be crystal clear. This is not toxic positivity. This is not putting a pretty bow on systemic injustice. The numbers are stark and sobering. Over 350,000 Black women lost their jobs in the first quarter of 2025 alone. Black women led startups received a mere 0.4% of venture capital funding in 2024. The Department of Education cut 28% of jobs held by Black women in a single sweep. These aren't just statistics, these are lives upended, dreams deferred, financial security shattered. The economic challenges are real, painful, and deeply rooted in systems that continue to marginalize Black women. But here's where Michelle's insight becomes revolutionary. Instead of accepting this marginalization as the final word, Black women are actively rewriting the rules and finding new ways to thrive. They're not just surviving, they're transforming what success means on their own terms. Let that sink in for a moment. For generations, Black women have been told that success looks like climbing corporate ladders, breaking glass ceilings, and proving ourselves worthy in space that weren't designed for us. We've carried the superwoman cape, held down households, led teams, raised families, and supported entire communities, often at the expense of our physical health, mental well being, and spiritual fulfillment. But what if being pushed out of these spaces isn't just an ending? What if it's an invitation to something more aligned with our authentic selves? Michelle introduced me to Julie Griffith, founder of the Champagne and Melanin Prepare and Pivot series. When Julie witnessed the mass layoffs affecting Black women in early 2025, she didn't just see a crisis, she saw an opportunity to create something entirely new. More than 350,000 Black women were suddenly facing isolation and uncertainty about their futures. The silence around their experiences was deafening. There were no headlines about this crisis, no emergency congressional hearings, no corporate pledges to address this specific exodus. Julie's response: create a platform specifically designed for career support and empowerment by and for Black women. Her series offered community building workshops, career coaching, and perhaps most importantly, safe spaces for candid conversations about pivoting. I realized that what we needed wasn't just job listings, Julie told Michelle. We needed a place to process our grief, acknowledge our worth, and reimagine our futures together. Because when one Black woman is pushed out, she often feels like she's failing alone. But when 350,000 of us are pushed out, that's not a personal failure. That's a systemic issue that requires a collective response. The results of Julie's work were transformative. Participants reported increased confidence, expanded professional networks, and a clearer sense of direction for their next career moves. The series grew to include hundreds of women, with many launching new businesses or successfully transitioning into entirely new fields. One participant shared, "Before champagne and melanin, I thought losing my corporate job meant I had failed. Now I realize it was the universe forcing me to build something I own instead of helping someone else build their dream." What Julie's work demonstrates is how collective support can transform individual setbacks into industry wide resilience. This is what releasing the cape looks like in action, creating spaces where we can be vulnerable, uncertain, and still supported. Michelle also shared the story of Fajani Cadet, a former director of diversity and inclusion who was laid off in April 2025. Fajani's experience reflects the widespread retreat from DEI initiatives in corporate America, a trend that has disproportionately affected Black women. Fajani faced financial anxiety, uncertainty, and the emotional toll of losing a purpose driven role. But instead of trying to force her way back into a system that had rejected her, she leveraged her expertise to consult for organizations still committed to DEI while advocating for more inclusive hiring practices. The result? Fajani built a portfolio career, increased her professional visibility, and became a vocal advocate for Black women in leadership. She secured contracts with multiple organizations and launched a mentorship program for Black professionals. And being laid off felt like having the floor disappear beneath my feet, Fajani explained. But once I stopped falling, I realized I could build my own foundation, one that couldn't be taken away with a single email or meeting. Her layoff was part of a larger trend with over 320,000 Black women leaving the workforce due to cuts in DEI roles and federal jobs. But Fajani's pivot demonstrates how expertise can be redirected to create new opportunities and influence industry standards. This is what redefining strength looks like, not pushing through barriers at all costs, but flowing around them to create new pathways. The third story Michelle highlighted shows how this transformation extends beyond individual careers to collective action. Black women in federal government roles faced disproportionate layoffs in 2025, losing positions that were once reliable pathways to middle class stability. These federal jobs had historically provided security, but sudden policy shifts left many Black women without the safety net they had counted on. Their response? Some affected women formed advocacy groups to lobby for fair hiring practices and created peer support networks to share resources and opportunities. These efforts led to the formation of new organizations focused on economic empowerment and policy change for Black professionals. Advocacy groups successfully raised awareness and influenced local hiring policies, helping others transition to new careers. One woman who lost her position after 12 years in government service told Michelle, "I spent my career trying to change the system from within. Now I'm building something new from the outside, and I've never felt more powerful." The broader community benefited from increased visibility of Black women's economic challenges and the push for policy reforms. This is protecting peace as a practice, creating systems that support our collective well being rather than fighting alone. What these stories reveal is a profound shift in how Black women are approaching career setbacks. Instead of internalizing rejection or doubling down on hustle culture, they're asking deeper questions. What if success isn't about climbing higher in systems that weren't built for us? What if it's about creating our own definitions of achievement, value, and purpose? This is the essence of embracing softness in a world that taught us survival. It's not about giving up, it's about giving ourselves permission to reimagine. Michelle emphasized three key insights that emerged from these stories. First, the extraordinary resilience and adaptability Black women demonstrate by pivoting, whether that means starting businesses, shifting careers, or creating support systems, despite systemic barriers and setbacks. Second, while the economic challenges are real and stark, these numbers also highlight the urgency and creativity of our pivots. Necessity becomes the mother of reinvention. Third, when Black women pivot, the ripple effects strengthen entire communities, as we are often heads of households and key contributors to philanthropy and community stability. What's particularly powerful about this perspective is how it transforms our relationship with setbacks. In a culture that often equates job loss with failure, these women are showing us that being pushed out of spaces can be the beginning of something more authentic and impactful. This isn't about toxic positivity or denying the very real pain and challenges of job loss. The financial anxiety, identity disruption, and uncertainty are all valid and significant. But what if we could hold both the pain and the possibility? What if we could acknowledge the injustice of systems that disproportionately push out Black women while also recognizing our power to create new systems? What if we could grieve what we've lost while celebrating what we might build? This is healing in real time, acknowledging wounds while tending to new growth. As I reflect on these powerful stories, I'm struck by how they challenge our fundamental understanding of success, failure, and resilience. They show us that sometimes rejection becomes our redirection. Sometimes what looks like an ending is actually a beginning. The question I leave you with today, the question that Michelle's work demands we ask ourselves, is this: what systems are you trying to succeed within that were never designed for your success in the first place? Maybe it's time to stop trying to prove your worth to institutions that will never fully value you. Maybe it's time to stop exhausting yourself climbing ladders that lead to ceilings you'll still have to break. Maybe, just maybe, the most revolutionary act isn't getting a seat at someone else's table. Maybe it's building your own table, setting your own terms, creating your own definition of success, and most importantly, doing it in community. Because if there's one thing these stories teach us, it's that transformation is rarely a solo journey. When we come together, when we support each other's pivots, when we create spaces for authentic conversation about both our struggles and our dreams, we don't just survive, we transform. And in that transformation, we find not just new careers or opportunities, but new ways of being rooted in joy, peace, and self determination. So today, I challenge you: examine where you're pouring your energy. Question the definitions of success you've inherited and consider what might be possible if you stop trying to fit into spaces that weren't designed for you and instead created something entirely new. Because when we reimagine success, we don't just change our own lives, we change the world.